Welcome to your Phil Steele Plus tour with selections. Today, 10 big plays for you. So a lot of selections. I want to show you how to use the site, show you a lot of interesting things about how to use Phil Steele Plus. And so let's go ahead and get right into it. And there's not a lot to show you in the NFL because no games have been played, so I can't really utilize the site to its fullest right now. But the one game we'll isolate on for the NFL would be Carolina and the Jets. I find it an interesting matchup. Sam Darnold, the QB for the Jets, now with Carolina. I think he's got a better supporting cast with Carolina, and that's going to help him out a lot this year. I actually think that Sam Darnold's going to have a better year than Zach Wilson, the player who they drafted, who the Jets drafted to take Sam Darnold's place. Another thing with Carolina is if you look at last year, they were only outgained by 10 yards per game. The Jets, meanwhile, were outgained by 108 yards per game, so they were the better team statistically last year. And then, of course, don't forget this factor. When you click on the 2020 individual stats, you can see all the stats for every player. You see that last year, Christian McCaffrey was only there these 3 games, and other than that, he didn't play. Christian McCaffrey, one of the best players in the NFL, is back. So Carolina's at home, taking out a rookie quarterback. They're only laying 4, which is surprising because I think Carolina's the better team. And, of course, Sam Darnold going to be highly motivated. So my first NFL play of this season, we're going to go with Carolina -4 over the New York Jets as your play. And it'll be interesting to see how that Darnell and Wilson factor comes out. And for the NFL, you just click on here. You got the logos for each team. You click on the team page. Let's go ahead and click on the Super Bowl champs, Tampa Bay. And if you want, these will be updated pretty soon, which has all the matchups for the years. But you can go back 2019, 18, 17. Individual stats. If you play fantasy football, you can see how every player did in every game for every season. It's all up there on the NFL. All right, let's go to the college file now. You just click here, FBS team pages. And we'll go FBS team pages over here. And the first one we're going to look at is New Mexico State against New Mexico. So New Mexico State is your visitor. We will put them on the left over here. And New Mexico is the home team. We will put them on the right over here. Now, one note here, and Todd will get this corrected. For some reason, New Mexico State's showing that they're playing South Carolina State here in Week 3, but they're really playing New Mexico. But by the time you click on this, Todd will have that corrected for you. So now let's go take a look at New Mexico over here. And we've got New Mexico hosting New Mexico State. And a couple of good things about this. First of all, if you want the last 40 years matchups, like for New Mexico, you go all the way back to 1976. You've got every game against the spread for the last 45 years at your fingertips. And what we did here is they didn't have totals on games prior to 2000, it was about 1999, they started putting totals on some TV games. And then once they started putting totals on every game, we started charting them right here. And we've got all your totals since 2003 on every game. And then also the halftimes. You can go back and get halftimes on every game here. We started charting them in 2004. That really tells you a good deal about how the game was played as well. So halftimes for the last 17 years, over-unders for the last 18 years, spread records dating back to 1976. It's at your fingertips. Just click here, last 40 years results. But let's take a look at this individual matchup, New Mexico and New Mexico State. And the thing I want to point out here is let's take a look at how the underdog has done in this series. And the underdog is 8-2. But look at these upsets out here. In the last 10 years, there's been 5 outright upset winners by the underdog. So not only is the underdog cash a lot, I mean, look here, favorite loss. There is one favorite win here, but favorite loss, favorite loss, favorite loss, dog win, favorite loss, dog win, favorite loss. So 8-2 against the spread for the underdog, 5 outright upsets, and 5 of the last 6. Let's take a look here. Now, first of all, when you look down this line here, this tells you the score of the game, and it instantly tells you who won or lost the game. You don't have to look at the score and see who's got more points. This shows you green. New Mexico has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 8. But they also had a 3-game losing streak here. So all that is there. Now, the red-green here means if they covered. So as you could tell, New Mexico is not covered 4 of the last 5. They're 1-4 against the spread the last 5 games in the series. And the game's been decided by 3 points. This one was decided by 17, but this one was decided by 2 points, 1 point, 9 points, 3 points. So in the last 6 years, this thing has been decided by 9 points or less 6 times. Now, New Mexico State is actually plus 18.5. And once again, if you go here and look at your half times, you can see last week New Mexico State was a much better team than they showed against UTEP. They actually led San Diego State 10-0 at the half. And was it fluky? No, look at this. They had a 248 to 108 yard edge at the half. That's legitimate. You want to double check that? You click right here on the box score. And I'd like to thank Ted Ganji at collegepressbox.com. They allow us to put their box scores up on our website. That is a tremendous site, collegepressbox.com. You can go there, and these are the game books you get on every single game. It takes you right through everything about the game. You can see it was 10-0 at the half. You can see the stats here, and then the play-by-play. It takes you through the play-by-play of every game, so you can see exactly how the game was played. There's the end of the first quarter stats. You see that New Mexico State led 3-0 with a 5-4 first down edge. Take it to the half. New Mexico State had 12-8 first down edge, had a 248 to 104 yard edge. It's all in here. You can see the stats, play-by-play, the entire game. And that's on every game. Just click right here under box. That'll take you to that. These give you the halftime stats right here. Just look in the column there. And, of course, that's your final. You want to see the series history, just like I did on this side. You click here for New Mexico State, and you can see how the series history has gone. You can see they've covered 4 of the last 5. I'm also looking at a little trend here I didn't notice. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 overs and 4 unders. So it tends to go over in the series. Here's your home team record. As you can see, there's a lot of red in there, so the home team doesn't do well. In fact, the home team is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 losses. 2-9. Blue means it's a push, by the way. So the home team is 2-9-1 in the series. And once again, the home team here is laying 18.5. So you got a rivalry game. You got New Mexico State playing better. The series history says dog. A lot of upsets in the series. Home team doesn't do well in the series. The visitor does extremely well. Add it all up, I'm going to take New Mexico State plus 18.5 against New Mexico. All right, let's take a look at another one. Once again, I'm trying to show you how to use the site to its fullest so you have all those advantages. Let's take a look at the Air Force against Navy game. Now, this is one of my favorites. I always, when option plays option, I like to play the under. And has it had success? Yeah, it's had some success. Well, let's take a look at this one right here. Air Force and Navy. We'll click the 2 teams here. As you could tell, they've had 49 in their game. They had 56 in their game. So you're thinking there's going to be a lot of points scored. But let's hone in on the series, Air Force and Navy. And if you look here, this is what we added this year, by the way. I like to thank Todd for adding that this year. We didn't have the over-unders, but now you can take a glance and see the over-unders. And look at this. In this series, Air Force Navy, which is option against option, the option is very effective because teams cannot prepare for it. They don't run the option. They can't have their scout teams run the option to its full. It's very tough for the defense to get ready for an option. However, when an option team plays an option team, they know how to defense the option. They face it in practice, and they do well. And look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 overs. We got 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 unders and a push. So 4, 12, and 1. And it's not just this series. Let's go take a look at Army-Navy. That's one of my famous ones because I play the under every year. You know that. You watch Phil Steele Plus every year. You get my newsletter every year. I pick the under every year. It's an automatic. And look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 straight years the under is cashed in the Army-Navy game. Option versus option. Let's go take a look at the Army-Air Force game. And once again, don't you love these blue things? You can look at the series history and have it all at your fingertips at a glance. Let's click on the Army game. Once again, look at this. The last 7 Army-Air Force games have gone under the total. So Navy is playing Air Force. What do you think I'm going to use here? 39, 9, and 1 for service academies. 39 unders, only 9 overs, 1 even. And by the way, another thing to point out here, you might look at Navy as well in this one. Navy's getting a full touchdown at home. And when you look at this matchup, the home team has absolutely dominated. So let's go back to the matchup. Army against Navy. Here's your home team record right here. Once again, now the win means if they won the game outright. The green means if they covered the game. Well, the home team is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight wins for the home team in this series. And Navy is a home underdog of 6 points in this one. 7-1 against the spread, 8-0. And look at the upsets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are, in this series, 11 upsets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And only 7 times has the favorite won outright. So in the last 18 meetings, and you could tell that upset out here means that the game was an upset. So in the last 18 meetings, the underdog has won outright 11 of the 18 times. Doesn't that get your interest peaked for moneyline players? That the underdog actually wins outright more than the favorite. So you got to look at the money line there as well. So it's an upset series, a home series, and an under series for the Navy and Air Force game. All right, let's switch it up a little. Let's pull in an FCS game just to mix it up. And we're going to take a look at Lamar is taking on UTSA. Now, right now, I got to tell you, I'm looking at a 5-dimes line of 12.5. I think that line is probably off. If it's not off, then I really like it at 12.5. But even if this thing jumps to like 20, let's say, that's fine because I like UTSA in this one. And let me explain why. UTSA is a good football team. And a lot of folks are saying, oh, Illinois lost to UTSA last week. But you guys followed UTSA last year. You know how they play. I think that Jeff Traylor's doing an amazing job. They've got the talent. Frank Harris last week looked good. Sincere McCormick, one of the better running backs in the league. And look at Sakari Franklin here. He had 10 catches for 155 yards. So the offense is getting it going. But let's hone in on Lamar a little bit and just see some about them. Now, Lamar, if you look at their record here in the spring, it wasn't good. They went 2-4, but look at their losses. They lost by 55, 32, 55, and 30 points. Lamar lost a lot from this 2019 season. As you can see, Jordan Hoy, their quarterback, gone. Top running back, Wanza, gone. Over here, you look at the receivers. They did return Banks, but he only had 506 yards. But they lost their quarterback. They lost their top running back. And they struggled in the spring. All 4 losses, 32 points or more. And once again, the spread I'm looking at right now at 5 dimes has UTSA a 12.5-point favorite. The other thing I want to point out is when you click on an FBS versus FCS matchup like this gives you your complete scenario of how the teams have done, how UTSA does against FCS teams. So as you can see, they lost to Cal Poly way back in 2013. But against the FCS, they win, and they also cover quite well. They've got a lot of green out here, and they only have 2 losses. Last year, they did lose. They did not cover against SF Austin, but that was no spring practice for Traylor, and he's got spring practice, and they're loaded. They led. Let's go back and look at this Illinois game, and once again, the box scores are available for every game. You just come over here and click on that. UTSA led 7-0, 14-0, 14-7. They did not trail the entire game. Never once did Illinois lead. They even led 37-27 in the fourth quarter with 4:57 left till Illinois got a field goal to pull it within 7. So they led start to finish. What were the stats in the game? They had the yardage edge 497 to 412. This is a good UTSA team. But how does Lamar do against FBS teams? Well, look at this. They lost to A&M 62-3. They lost to Texas Tech 77-0. They lost to North Texas 59-14. They lost to Houston 42-0. They lost to Lamar by 24. They lost to Baylor by 34. They lost to A&M by 70. They lost to Oklahoma State by 56. So the last 8 times they have faced an FBS foe. The closest game was 20. Well, Lamar, forget this Lamar one, that 24. I'm not sure why that's in there. So the last 7 times they faced an FBS foe, the closest game was this one, 35-point loss. And now let's hone in a little bit on something you might find fascinating. Yes, Lamar got off to a great start, 47-3 against North America. So they're a different team this year, right? They're loaded. You know what? North America, if you dive into that, they didn't even have a logo. So this is a team where some people are calling it Bishop Sycamore of high school. Are they a real college? And that's why the game was non-competitive. I think that these stats are greatly skewed by the opponent they played. Have you heard of North American? Because I never heard of North American. I had to do research to find out that they couldn't even post a logo when they put it up on ESPN2 or U or 3 or whatever they put it up on. So I think that Lamar, the 47-3, take it, throw it out the window. Take UTSA. Lay the 13.5, 12.5, lay 20 if you have to. But I like UTSA minus the points over Lamar. All right, let's go back to FBS versus FBS. We're going to take a look at Western Kentucky against Army. This is a game that I like as a matchup situation. Now, I just talked to you about option versus option when it comes to the service academies. And Army faced a lot of option last year. They took on, if you look at their schedule, they took on, I believe they took on the Citadel option team. They took on Air Force. They took on Navy. They took on Georgia Southern. Tulane even runs a form of the option. So they took on a lot of option last year. They struggle when they face a pass attack because they don't really have, much like teams struggle against the option because they can't simulate it in practice, Army doesn't have a great scout team for a pass team, so they struggle. Now they're playing Western Kentucky, and in your head you're probably thinking Western Kentucky is a defensive team that doesn't really throw the ball a lot, but now they do. Bailey Zappi is there. Who's Bailey Zappi? Well, he threw for over 10,000 yards at Houston Baptist. Let's go take a look at Houston Baptist real quick just to show you how all this is at your fingertips when you have Phil Steele Plus. Here's Houston Baptist. Here's Bailey Zappi, 1,833 yards. And look how he did against North Texas, 480. Against Texas Tech, 572. Against Louisiana Tech, 406. You can go back here. Threw for 300 against UTEP in this one. Let's find out how he does against FBS teams. Against Smooth, they put up 27 points. He had 241 yards. You can see Zappi was here the whole time and putting up great stats. So he threw for 3,000 here. He threw for almost 4,000 there. And even in the short spring, or in the 2020 when they played in the fall, he had 1,800 yards. So let's go back to Army over here. Click on Army. So anyway, Zappi last week against UT Martin, 478 yards, 7 touchdowns. They can throw the football. And who's his leading receivers? Stearns. They actually brought over the top 3 receivers from Houston Baptist, including Stearns. So they are now a pass offense. I like that matchup against Army. And on the flip side of the coin, can Western Kentucky defend the option? Well, guess what? Western Kentucky's coach, Tyson Helton, did face Army in 2019, his first year. So let's go back and delve into that game. Here it is, Army, and they hosted Army. They beat them 17-8. They held Army to 208 yards, 10 first downs, 137 yards rushing. Let's take a look at Army. Now, here's another thing about our stats. Over here, this tells you how the offense did against the opponent's defense and how the defense did against the opponent's offense. You could see that here, Western Kentucky held Army to 185 yards per game below their season average, the second best any defense did against them all year. That's on every game. You can look at that. We don't have it up yet on this year's stats. You see how they're blank? Because there hasn't been 2 games. So once you get to the 2-3 games, then you're able to tell what a team's average is for the year. And that'll be updated all season long. So do utilize these columns. I find them very important. But as you can see here, Western Kentucky knows how to defend the option. They held them to their second lowest total, 185 yards below their season average in 2019. They had all August to help prepare for the option. I think they'll be well prepped for the option. Army can't face pass offenses. Army's laying 6 points at home. I got to go with my matchup of the week being Western Kentucky plus the 6 over Army. All right, let's hit a couple other games here. I said I'm giving you 10. Once again, I want you to show you mostly how to use the site and use it to its fullest when you've got the Phil Steele Plus, but I can't go into a game. I can't look at a game for the upcoming week without my Phil Steele Plus. And let me just show you how to sign up just real quick here, how to sign up to Phil Steele Plus. You go to the Phil Steele store right here. Here's Phil Steele Plus. $69 for the whole year. You just click on it. You'll have access to this site, FBS, FCS, NFL, all September, all October, all November, all December, all January. Basically comes down to $10 a month, like $2 a week, guys, and you'll have this type of access. All the games, and you'll be able to click on everything for every game. So go to right there to the store, get your Phil Steele Plus, just $69. If you just want the FCS version, it's right here. It's $29. You get access to all the FCS teams. We'll get into a few more FCS teams in a minute. All right, let's take a look at the team page here. We're going to take a look at the Iowa State game coming up. And when I look at this matchup, I'm thinking it's going to be like the Georgia-Clemson matchup. Two great defenses, and I think that the defenses will probably control the game. So that's my first thought process, is go with the defense and go with the under. And the total's up there. It's like 46. Sometimes these games get to be down there like 42, 41, but it's up there at 46. I like that. So let's click on Iowa State. And the one thing I noticed about Iowa State last week, Breece Hall was fantastic last year. 1,572 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. Northern Iowa held him to 3 yards per carry. Now, Iowa's got a good defense. They had a good defense last year. Look how this defense played all season. They only gave up 314 yards per game. They gave up 2.8 yards per carry. And Iowa has been on quite a roll. I mean, you look at this average game grade here. 108.4 last year, number 11. Their last 6 games were dynamite. Had they been able to play Michigan, that game got canceled last year. Had they been able to play Missouri in the bowl game, that game got canceled last year. They would have been 8-2 and in the top 10. So they were on this 6-game roll, and then they just dominated Indiana in the opener. And their defense held Indiana at 233 yards. Michael Penix, outstanding QB. Indiana hit 14 of 33 passes for 156. They have the defense. But here's the clincher. I like the defense. Let's look at the series history. All right, when we click on series history, look at these unders. Last 16 times these teams have played, 14 unders. A lot of times, I remember Ohio State, Michigan, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, when they used to play each other, it was always an under game. It was one of those where it was a tight, you didn't want to make the mistake to lose the game. It was such a big game. This 44-41, aberration, but everything else has been pretty much unders in this series. They've ironically had two 44-41 games, but last year was 18-17. 2 years before that, 13-3. And that's pretty much how the game gets played. So, last year, the two teams, they didn't play last year, but 2 years ago when they played, 313 yards for Iowa in the win. So add this one up. I'm showing you how to use the series history. Maybe let's take a look. I want to look a little bit more at the series history, see if we find something about the game on this one. How does the home team do? Look at the red over here for the home team losses. The visitor does pretty well in this series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The visitors actually won 6 of the last 8 games. See, I didn't even research that. I just have this in my fingertips with Phil Steele Plus. And Iowa has won the last 5. Do you know that Kirk Ferentz has never lost to Matt Campbell? He's won all 5 meetings right here. You see it in green. And against the spread, 3-1-1 against the spread. Last year, they won by 1. They were actually laying 1.5 and didn't get the cover in that game. But this is at your fingertips, these last 24 matchups. And I'm going to go with under as your official play here. All right, let's get to your next one. How about Hawaii and Oregon State? Now, Hawaii's on the road, and Oregon State's at home. So we're going to put Hawaii on the left, and we're going to put Oregon State on the right. Oregon State, now I want you to flip to your magazine. Your magazine's a vital resource during the season. You got to love the spread logs, okay? So I want you to flip to your magazine right now. Go to your spread logs for Oregon State. I know you all have a magazine. You have to. You wouldn't be watching this if you didn't have a magazine. If you don't have a magazine, you're not a football fan, for crying out loud. But anyway, look how Oregon State does in the home favorite role. If you go back and take a look at the last 8 years heading into this year, they are 6-12 against the spread as a home favorite. So they do not do well. In fact, as a away favorite, they are 1-5 the last 10 years. So as a favorite overall, you're talking about a team that's 5-17. Now, I used Hawaii last week, and I felt really, really good after the first quarter. And once again, you have all this information at your fingertips. Look at the Portland State game at the half. 35-7. Hawaii had 406 yards at the half. 406 yards at the half, guys. And let's look at a box score here for a minute. Not only was it 35-7 at the half, you could see Hawaii scored almost every single time they had the ball. But when you're going through the play-by-play of the game, you're going to see here Hawaii touchdown, Hawaii touchdown, Hawaii touchdown. Hawaii gets down here. They have a 2nd and goal at the 1-yard line, and they don't score. They fumble the football, or else it would have been 42-7 at the half. I mean, Hawaii did what they wanted. They put it away in the second half. Let me go back to that box. And once again, thanks again to collegepressbox.com for letting us put these box scores up here on our site. You can see that Portland State trailed 42-21, and they get the ball and they score a touchdown at the end of the game. So Portland State right here, down 42-21, gets the ball with 2:33 to go, and they get a garbage touchdown. So garbage touchdown at the end of the game, or it's 42-14 Hawaii. And it's a game Hawaii just flat out dominated. And the UCLA game, that doesn't look so bad right now. And remember, in that game, it was 2 special teams things that happened to Hawaii. They had their punter go to a knee when he picked up the ball, and instead of a punt that went to the UCLA 10, UCLA got the ball in their 20, and then they also gave up a blocked punt for a touchdown. They only gave UCLA 392 yards. That's 78 yards less than LSU gave UCLA. So this is a good Hawaii team against an Oregon State team that struggles as a home favorite. I mean, they struggle. And Sam Neuer was supposed to be the QB last week. He got replaced by Chance Nolan. They did give Purdue a good game, 30-21 last week, so that was a good game. Todd doesn't have the halftimes up on that yet, but he'll have that up by the time you look at your Phil Steele Plus site. So overall, Hawaii is getting 11. And they should have covered last week. They played better than the final score against UCLA. Oregon State's a poor favorite. Add it all up, I like Hawaii plus 11 in that one. It's for that. So let's take a look now at an FCS matchup against an FBS team. Old Dominion, I'm going to put them on the right. Believe it or not, last night, guys, I watched the Old Dominion game against Wake Forest. That's what I do in my spare time. And, DJ Mack, 7-21. His receivers dropped about 5 passes, or it would have been better, but they did pull him. Hayden Wolf moved him a little bit at the end. That thing is 42-3, though, when Hayden Wolf comes into the game and gives him this late drive for a touchdown with 2:27 left. Like I said, I think DJ Mack played better than the 7-21. I saw at least 5 drops in the game, but Wake Forest dominated the game as you would expect, and it was 42-3, as you can tell. Now, here's Hampton, and let's take a look at Hampton real quick. Hampton is a team that hasn't been overly great. I mean, 2019, they went 5-7, so not an overly great team. Prior to that, though, they had a pretty good record. They went 7-3. And if you want to read about Hampton, you just click here on the forecast. You get the complete breakdown. Everything about Hampton is on there. It tells you where Hampton's been in their history, what they've done, who their quarterback is, everything about Hampton you want to know. It's like getting an FCS magazine right there. Plus, for the FCS, you actually have stats. You can go back and take a look at what Hampton's done every single year. Now, you may not know this, and I didn't know it until I watched the Big South Media Days. Yeah, I watched the Big South Media Days, sorry to say. But anyway, Hampton and Old Dominion are both located in Virginia Beach, for crying out loud. They're neighbors. They're right next to each other. And in Big South Media Days, generally the coach is talking about his team, how they're going to do in conference play. And all the coaches in Big 12 media, or in these FCS Media Days, none of them talked about their non-conference opponents. They all talked about week 1 or conference games. Guess what? Robert Prunty brought up Old Dominion. He said, what a huge win it would be if they could knock off their rival right here in Virginia Beach, in the Virginia Beach area, with a win in the opener. So they're thinking, we need to beat Old Dominion. Old Dominion, now Hampton didn't play last year, but guess what? Neither did Old Dominion. So neither team played last year. Old Dominion, a team that doesn't win very many games. Let's go back and take a look at their win total. They beat Norfolk State by 3 this year. They won this game by 14. They won this game by 3. They won this game by 3. They did beat VMI by 63 that year. But here they won by 14, they won by 10, they won by 6, they won by 7, they won by 3. I got 1 win so far since 2017 for Old Dominion by double digits, let's say. And now they're laying 27.5. And here's the thing. Look at Hampton. Look at these individual player stats. Do you recognize this name, guys? Jet Duffy. He played for Texas Tech. He started for Texas Tech. Did he do well last week? How about 24 of 35, 242 yards? And look at their run game. Darren Butts and Elijah Burris both topped 100 yards. They both averaged over 10 yards per carry. Now, granted, it's against Virginia Union. All right, I'll give you that. But I think Hampton's a little bit of a dangerous team. And you're asking an Old Dominion team to not just win this game against a close rival who's pumped up for them, but win it by 4 touchdowns or more when they've only won one game the last 5 years by 4 touchdowns or more. I'm going to take Hampton. I'm going to take them plus 27.5 in this one. And if you click on Old Dominion here, by the way, against Hampton, once again, this calls it up. And one thing I want to point out here, this tells you if they won the game, and of course this tells you whether they covered. So Old Dominion is actually 2-5 against the spread when taking on FCS teams. And when you look down here, the green, of course, means that these are pulled over. This is Ohio's. I don't do FCS matchups over here, so these are Ohio's numbers. They're actually 0-6. And they are 1-2-1 against the spread because green means you lost, red means you won down here. But I do think that this is a different Hampton team this year. They're talking about beating Old Dominion in media days, and I'm going to take them plus 27.5 in this rivalry. All right, we got 2 more games to go. And if you've heard me on the radio shows this year during the summer talking about anything about totals, I have talked under. My main theme has been, last year the defenses did not get to hit. And an offense can practice against air, but defenses cannot practice against air. So last year the offenses dominated, a lot of high-scoring games, and it's going to inflate the spread early in the year, and the defenses are going to be much better this year. You saw that in the Mississippi-Louisville game. See how Mississippi's defense was improved this year? But I'm actually going to take an overplay here. It says it goes against what my thought process is, but I'm going to take one game and take a look at an overplay, and it's going to be SMU against North Texas. And when you take a look at North Texas, they're a team which I associate with overs. And, look at this last year, this game was 65-35. 100 points were scored in the game. If we take a look out here, I don't see the over-unders updated on North Texas. Let me see if SMU's – oh, that's because it was last year's. Click on this one for here. It should have the over-unders. We have 3 overs in the last 4 years. These teams put up 69, 86, 86, 100 points. Which one went under? Oh, this total was 71.5, and it went under barely. It went under with 71. So the one time it went under was by 0.5 point. Now, the total is up there. It's 73. But North Texas has got Jace Ruder at quarterback this year. He didn't have a great opener against Northwestern State. They still put up 44 points, 527 yards. They ran the ball well. Torrey ran the ball for 244 yards, 9.8 yards a carry. Now, SMU, a lot of questions this year about their quarterback, and because they lost Shane Buechele. But they bring in an Oklahoma transfer in Tanner Mordecai. Tanner Mordecai hit 24 of 30 passes, 317 yards, and 7 touchdowns last week. Granted, it was against Abilene Christian, but let's face it, North Texas's defense is no great ball of wax. They gave up 261 yards rushing to Northwestern State in the opener. Look at all the red here. They have trouble stopping the run, which means they, of course, have trouble stopping the pass. They only had 21 sacks last year. They did put points up. Their games averaged 77 points per game last year. SMU games averaged 70 points per game. And I think SMU's got a pretty potent offense. So it's a high number. It goes against what I've said basically at the start of the year, which was a blanket play the under at the start of the year. And it's worked out pretty well. If you've played the unders, you've done extremely well early in the year. But I'm actually going to go with over 73. My computer's calling for 88 points. It's about a 15-point difference here. So I'm going to go with the over. I think Mordecai has a good game. And I look for Jace Ruder to really improve for North Texas throwing the football, especially if Torrey can keep running it. Now, your final game we're going to take a look at, your 10th and final game. Let me take a sip of water here. All right, you guys know it's that Mountain Dew. All right, take a look here at the Southern Miss against Grambling game. We're going to put Southern Miss on the right. And we're going to put Grambling on the left. Grambling. By the way, for the FCS teams, it's conferences. If you know your conferences, great. If you don't know your conferences, we got them in alphabetical order here. Now, Grambling's starting quarterback in the spring was Jeremy Hickenbottom. Hickenbottom is gone. So Elijah Walker's the new quarterback in the spring. They actually just played Sunday. I don't know if you got to watch the game against Tennessee State, but Elijah Walker only hit 4 of 11 passes for 43 yards. Did lead the team in rushing, but they really didn't have another running back. And to compare the teams, Tennessee State, let's go take a look at what Tennessee State's all about. I'm not really sure. Let's take a look. Become an expert on it. That's how it is with Phil Steele Plus. You become an instant expert on every FCS team, every FBS team, every NFL team. All right. This is a bad team. They went 2-5 last year. They went 3-9 the year before. Their defense gives up 455 yards per game. They improved to 387 yards per game in the spring. Guess what? Grambling only had 184 yards against them. Yeah, they won the game. That was on a Sunday in Canton, Ohio, for crying out loud. Now they're playing on a short week and traveling from Ohio back home to Grambling and now over to Southern Miss. And Southern Miss has got to be a team that's rather mad. I mean, they had a lot of turnovers last week. They had a 4-1 turnover deficit against South Alabama. You could see the -3 over here. They actually had a 19-13 first down edge. Now, they didn't move the ball great, but South Alabama's got a really good defensive line. South Alabama's got some players. They've got Bentley at quarterback. They've got dangerous receivers. And they lost the game 31-7. I'm thinking it was mostly this -3. They weren't really dominated in the game. Grambling, on the other hand, is here. Now, if you look at the average game grades, Grambling won, but they only played to an average game grade of 55.8. Southern Miss lost, but they played to an average game grade of 83.8. So right there, you are looking at a 28-point difference. Factor in the home edge, it puts you up to about a 32-point difference in the game. Southern Miss got to be angry. When I talked to Coach Hall in the summer, he thought that Southern Miss was going to, first of all, they needed to reestablish the Rock as a home field edge. So they are angry off a loss. They're not looking ahead to Troy. They need a win. And I think this Southern Miss team is under the radar. And that for opening loss gives us value here against a Grambling team that I don't know if Grambling can score. They only had 184 yards last week against a weak defense. They're taking on a better defense here, one that only allowed 300 yards against South Alabama. Let's take a look at some of these weapons that South Alabama has, by the way, just so you can see what I'm talking about. And once again, it's all at your fingertips. South Alabama's got Kareem Walker, a Michigan transfer running back. Jake Bentley, South Carolina/Utah transfer at quarterback. Jalen Tolbert, one of the best wide receivers in the thing, and a transfer here in Colin Lacey. So they have got a loaded stack of offensive weapons, and Southern Miss held them to 300 yards. Now they're angry. They're at home. They're laying 24.5, but I think Southern Miss gets it off to a good start with a solid win. So I'm going to take Southern Miss -24.5. One other note for you. Last week here I gave you William and Mary against Virginia, and William and Mary did not score. One thing I didn't realize till after the game was over, that's not William and Mary, that's Western Illinois. Let's click on William and Mary, Phil. All right, when we click on William and Mary, their quarterback, Hollis Mathis, who has played there, he was their quarterback here. So he was a 2-year starting quarterback. He didn't play. They went with a freshman quarterback because of injury. They held Mathis out of the game, and with a freshman quarterback, they only put up 183 yards and didn't cover the 33.5-point spread. But I just thought I'd throw that out to you. Once again, if you look at the individual player stats, you can see how they did in the game. And this was a freshman quarterback taking on Virginia on the road. Part of the reason they had 0 points at 183 yards. Well, that'll do it for you. I hope that gave you a lot of information, a lot. I hope I showed you how to use Phil Steele Plus. If you're a Phil Steele Plus user, make sure you use it to its fullest. And if you're not a Phil Steele Plus Phil Steele Plus user, guys, it's like $2 a week, and you're going to be using it all the way through the Super Bowl. So sign on, get it today, and have yourself a great weekend. Hopefully the 10 plays do extremely well this weekend. And thanks for taking the Phil Steele Plus tour with selections.